My name's Eliza, back for another tech entrepreneurship video. If this topic inspires or interests you, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing around to anyone who you may know. Now today I'm going to talk about some top tech news stories that are going on right now. It's kind of a combination of big things going on in the industry and also things that I'm interested in talking about, and I will be providing my own opinion, which, take it or leave it. I have an MBA from a technical program, an engineering degree, and have worked in tech for many years now, but, take that as you will. So my notes are here, so I'm sorry if I look off the screen sometimes. So first up, Google is embroiled in something of a situation right now because they are deciding what to replace their cookie system with. Now, a cookie is a snippet of code that's embedded in every website you visit, so that as you browse the website, it collects certain information about you. It will often be demographics like age, gender, etc., but also what websites you visit and your browser history. What Google does with that information is it aggregates it and kind of builds a profile around you, specifically so that advertisers can send really hyper-specific marketing ads to you. It's like if you've ever done a Google search for something and then suddenly you're advertised that all the time. Like if you Google laundry detergent, suddenly Tide ads are popping up everywhere you go. And that's for a specific reason for these cookies. Now, a lot of people have objected to the use of browser cookies based on privacy laws. This is too much information about me on the internet that I did not consent to. Just because I visit a website doesn't mean I want them collecting all of this information about me, and I don't want advertisers knowing all this specific stuff about me. So, in an effort to hide that personal information, Google initially came up with a plan called a flock. And what that was supposed to be aggregated groups of people so that you only got generalized information about groups of people as opposed to individual people. This wasn't very popular with either consumers or with advertisers because the advertisers had to have a lot of technical knowledge to understand what these different flocks are and how to choose which one that they needed. And it didn't necessarily prevent a lot of this user info being taken. So it was kind of the worst of all worlds. So now what Google is considering moving to instead is something called topics, where you have generalized topics of things people might be interested in, like parenting or travel, and use that as a way to have advertisers still find audiences that are potentially interested in their product and not just to mass markets that probably aren't interested, while at the same time protecting users. Google hasn't made any decisions yet and said that they won't until 2023. Now, my opinion on this, it seems that in Europe especially, there's been a big push to protect user privacy. And in America and California, similar steps are being taken. It turns out that the general public seems to not really care so much about their data privacy. So it will be interesting to see how this goes out and also how this affects the user experience. Right now, every website that you visit, it asks you to accept that it uses cookies. That is a bit annoying as an internet user, and it affects the experience. So this might be a way to remove that need, and that would be very interesting. And if Google does this, they are about 65% of the internet browser market share. Basically what Google says goes, and most other companies will follow suit off of what Google decides. So next up, we have found out that cryptocurrency is being used increasingly for money laundering. It's estimated that last year, about $8.6 billion was used in money laundering using cryptocurrencies. That's up about 30% since last year. This is according to Chainalysis. Side note, Chainalysis is a terrible name. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I have said something inappropriate, and I'm really glad that I never have to say that again. But that is the source. I will be including all the sources down below. So obviously, this is not great news that money laundering can be used so much in this new way. Some of the articles that I read were interesting because essentially what they were saying was that law enforcement was able to use the transactions that these criminals were making to track them down and shut down operations, and also that really specific exchanges were heavily used for the purpose of money laundering. So if they were to shut those exchanges down, it might put a really big dent into the money laundering business. So my opinion on this, I mean, cryptocurrency has two main hurdles to mass market: accessibility and trust. The use of cryptocurrencies in crime being so prevalent is affecting this trust factor, but then again, similar things happened with, say, the introduction of the credit card. So there's always going to be law enforcement trying to track down these guys, and then these guys outsmarting them, etc., etc. The fact is that the introduction of cryptocurrency does mean that there is another avenue for criminal activity. However, there's always going to be a song and dance of law enforcement improving their techniques versus criminals becoming more sophisticated with this new tool. So it isn't yes or no. I think there's other larger forces as to the prevalence and the longevity of cryptocurrency, but that's sort of a topic for another day. But it is interesting to see that it's already spiking, and I can imagine that the use of cryptocurrency for money laundering and other nefarious purposes is only going to increase in the future. Next up, Boston Dynamics has just announced a $15 million deal with DHL. Now, in March of last year, they came out with Stretch, which is their sort of second major line of robots. These robots are specifically for warehousing and logistics purposes, for loading and unloading trucks. The logistics space is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, area for robotics right now in terms of mass market appeal. Boston Dynamics is a company owned by Hyundai, and they are one of the most innovative, both in terms of their robotics and their behind-the-scenes AI engineering for these robots. And a multi-year $15 million contract with DHL is going to be the biggest and currently most important case study in how these robots can be implemented into actual business applications. Now, my opinion on this is that we are now really looking at the potential for a huge market of the blue-collar industry to be replaced by automation and robots. Similar to how a lot of manufacturing was replaced, this is probably going to be the beginnings of the next wave. Warehousing and logistics has a huge attrition rate amongst labor. You know, it's not the easiest job conditions, and it's difficult to do. It's very manual heavy. It's very taxing. The pay and benefits aren't always amazing. So lots of people don't have extreme loyalty to their companies. Lots of people, you know, working in a warehouse isn't exactly their dream job. So on the one hand, these are the kinds of jobs that you might want to automate because people should be finding fulfilling work to do that they can integrate into society in a very productive way that has them feeling fulfilled. On the other hand, these types of jobs that don't require extensive degrees, that require lots of money, and don't require skill sets that are going to be a high barrier of entry to learn, are becoming more difficult to find, and that's going to create disruption in the economy and the labor market. So that is something to consider. On the other hand, of course, younger generations, Millennial and Gen Z, More of them have college degrees than ever, so perhaps this balances out. It'll be really fascinating to see how well these robots perform, and also whether they are going to be a viable alternative to using humans for these jobs. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know if this is a format that you guys like, and if you liked any topics in this video, or if there's anything else you'd like me to discuss, please comment down below. And that's it for me today. Thank you so much.